everybody, Robbie here from Major League Hacking. Please bear with me while I figure out this overlay stuff. One of these days I'll get a smooth start to our live stream. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to be looking at how to set up Python, how to set up Git, how to set up Node.js, even how to set up Ruby for those of you who want to do Ruby in a fresh environment, because geez, I know that every time I try and install Python it causes me many problems. Now, just to address a couple of the comments that are coming in on the chat here, we've got one from Adam, regular viewer of MLH. Adam says, Robbie, how do I not lose my mind considering my A-level computer science coursework is due in 6 hours? That is a good question. If I ever figure out the answer, I'll let you know. Mic problems. 2 seconds. Alrighty, I need somebody to confirm in the chat, please, whether my microphone is now better or not. Let's just assume it's all good. Adam says, how do I not lose my mind considering my A-level computer science coursework's due in 6 hours? The answer is good luck. That's all I can say. I never did A-level computer science, so I don't even know what the coursework is like. Aaron says, Robbie, how do I install Python without everything breaking? And the answer is you come along to this session and we will show you how to install Python without breaking everything. Aaron says, Robert, it sounds better. Excellent, Aaron. Let's not call me Robert, please. Okay, now, first thing you need to do is you need to head over to hackpack/March challenges and then hackpack/hack with Robbie. Don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do that on a screen share right now. As soon as I click on this screen share button, can you feel the tension? I got too many screens, dude. Screen 3. And okay, we are now showing a live stream. Fantastic. First things first, we're going to head over to hackp.ac/March challenges. This is going to bring up the March challenges one. You're going to hit login and register. It's going to invite me to log in. And I have checked in as well because I've already done this one before, which is fantastic. And then the next thing you need to do is you're going to head up to hackp.ac/hack with Robbie. It's going to direct you to this page for setting up your environment. Go ahead, click on register and check in there as well. It's really important that you do this. Otherwise, we don't know how many people are actually attending this session. We need to learn what works and what doesn't. And so checking in is really important. So please make sure you do that. Once you've done that check-in, we're going to go and switch over to my macOS virtual machine, which looks like it's coming through just fine. You'll have to excuse the black bars there. Now, this is a fresh macOS Catalina installation. I will be using a Mac for this session, but if you have a Linux machine, should work pretty similarly. If you're using Windows, I recommend the Windows subsystem for Linux. If you just Google WSL, it'll show you how to do it. macOS virtual machine, the answer is it's a bit of a headache. I found a Git script actually, which shows you how to do it. Stick around to the end and I might provide you with the URL that I used. Now, this is to introduce myself. I'm Robbie from Major League Hacking. I've been a European coach since February 2019. Full-time, I work at AWS and I do a bunch of other hackathon stuff, as you can see here. Okay, what are we doing first? Let's say we've got a fresh machine. I'm going to go ahead and minimize Safari here. Fresh install. We've got our terminal. And no one wants to use the standard terminal. Like, standard terminal is just not good. Text is small. I'm going to zoom in a bit here. It's not a good experience for anybody. So rather than the standard terminal, we're going to use something called iTerm. iTerm is a modern terminal. I think they call it a terminal emulator. It's essentially like your normal terminal, but better. iTerm is Mac specific, but if you're on a Linux machine, then the terminal is pretty good anyway. On the Windows one, there's a bunch of options. My microphone's still crackling. 1 second. Okay, so I'm currently using my MacBook microphone. Wow, this is not looking great, is it? So the microphone is better because I'm using my laptop mic. Screen share is not so happy. Let's just try and do that screen share again. 1 second. Okay, so using my laptop mic, my expensive microphone is clearly just useless. How's that? Is that working when I scroll? Not looking healthy. let's try that. And we set the zoom down a bit here. Okay. This does not look good on StreamYard, does it? You know when you're a developer and like you're writing something and then you write some codes and you test it and it works fine, and then you hand it over to the client and the client's like, it doesn't work. And you put your hands up and you say, works on my machine, must be a you problem. That's basically the situation we're facing here. Hey, let's just go ahead and close that and try again. If that one fails, we will just do it all on my actual Mac and kill everything. So let's see how we get on here. If you've not used VirtualBox before, VirtualBox is a way of running a virtual machine, basically a fake mini computer inside your computer. That's what my plan was for this session, was to run a virtual machine for Mac OS and then install everything on the clean installation there. But if that does not work, we will do it on my computer instead. This screen share is bad. Tell you what, I'm going to switch browser. I'm going to switch to Google Chrome, see if that can handle the screen share better. Let me put on a quick coffee break banner. I'll be back in less than 2 minutes, I promise. Be right back. Okay, hello folks. We are back. I'm now using Google Chrome. It looks like it's working in Google Chrome. Let me go ahead and try the screen share here. I'm also using my laptop mic, not my expensive mic, so you'll have to tell me if the microphone is bad or good or whatever. Let's share this. Okay, I'm going to keep an eye on it and see if it breaks. And it looks like I managed to click on my own email address there and open the mail app. So where did we get to? We said we had done a check-in. So you headed to Hackpack/March challenges, and then you headed to Hackpack/Hack with Robbie to check in. I'm here in a clean macOS installation. I'm just going to figure out what's going on here with my my mail app, which is clearly not having a good day. Let's quit that. Also, this is not my real email on stream. It's an email which will come to me, but you know, it's one of those ones I can easily kill if needed. Okay, hopefully we've got better AV now. Let's go ahead. I completely lost where we were up to. Oh yeah, we were talking about how rubbish the built-in terminal is on macOS. Like, look at this thing. It's just garbage. You know, no one wants to use this. So we're going to use something instead called iTerm. If you head to Google and you search for iTerm, iTerm is exclusive to Mac OS, but the terminal on Linux is pretty good. On Windows, I'm not so sure. I think PowerShell is reasonable, or you've got a bunch of other options. Let's go ahead and click on download. We're going to download iTerm. Okay, now, I should warn you, given that this session is about downloading and installing things, we are at the mercy of my CPU and my broadband speed. So there may be times when we have to wait a few minutes for something to download or install. In those moments, we'll try and find something else exciting to do. So we've downloaded iterm.app. I'm just going to go ahead and drag that into my applications folder. And then I'm going to head to that applications folder, grab iTerm, and I'm going to stick it here in my dock. And then we'll go ahead and just get rid of the standard terminal app. Nobody needs that in their life. There's a few good suggestions here in the chat. We've got Windows Terminal Preview is amazing. Commander for Windows for Bash. I've not heard of it, but I presume it's pretty good. Melon Squad, I've heard of that before as well, but it's not a command line. I love this one. Maybe Robbie's CPU needs some coffee. Yeah, I think that is the case. I mean, this is supposed to be a pretty decent MacBook Pro, right? This is one that I bought 2 years ago now, and it's got like six cores, 32 gigs of RAM. It's a beefy machine, but it just clearly can't handle streaming and virtual machines. I've closed literally everything else in the background. Like, I don't have Slack open, I don't have Discord open or anything. It's just StreamYard and my macOS virtual machine. So we've downloaded our terminal iTerm. This is, as soon as you open it, you're going to see it's better, right? We'll click open, allow notifications. Look at that, it's a dark theme. Now, personally, I'm a light theme kind of guy, but I know that most people like dark themes. Dark theme terminal, already a win. Now, as we're opening it up, we've got this Mac-specific thing where it's talking about these command line developer tools. These are essentially developer tools that come with macOS, including Git and a bunch of stuff like that. So we'll just click install for this. You will get prompted when you do stuff on your Mac if you don't have these installed to just do it. So just download that. Now, if you can see here, it says 8 hours, 9 hours remaining. When I did this earlier, it very quickly became like a few minutes. So tell you what, while we wait for that to download, we're going to have some fun. We're going to go and search for the... Well, I was going to say the Chrome Dino game, but given that my virtual machine is not the most responsive in the world, that might not be a great idea. What we'll do instead is a bit of personal branding and personal flexing. We'll head to my website, robbie.dev. If you attended one of my live stream sessions back in Local Hack Day build in January, I think, you would have seen me build out the framework for this. I have now added some beautiful colors and things like that to it. So I've got my badges for employment. You can see graduate consultant at AWS Professional Services, director and co-founder of Hackathons UK Consulting. I'm a European coach at Major League Hacking. Scroll down a bit further. I was a junior PHP developer. That was my first proper job of actual web dev. I did do an internship at my university doing web dev, but I'm not sure you can really count that because it was just, putting pictures on a web page. Volunteering, director, trustee, and co-founder of Hackathons UK. I organized DurHack at Durham University. I was president of Durham University Computing Society. Running out of time. How are we doing? Look at that, 51 seconds. Okay, let's keep going. Let's go through this education stuff. So I did my degree. Just yesterday, actually, I passed another AWS certification exam. So I've now got all 3 associate ones and the cloud practitioner as well, of course, and there's Terraform associate certification. How are we doing here? Still 51 seconds remaining. Fantastic. How's things going in the chat? Robbie, what's Hackathons UK? Hackathons UK is something that is a little tricky to describe. but it's essentially, I think it's a community-led nonprofit of hackathon organizers in the UK. If you'd like to learn more, reach out to Aaron. He will happily talk for hours and hours about it. melon.blahagegang.lol. I have heard interesting things about this. I'm not sure if I dare open it on a live stream. Actually, no. So you see how this, I presume it's coming through on the stream, right? This timer is interesting, right? Earlier it said 51 seconds. Before that it said 9 hours. Now it says 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I read a great blog post somewhere about how progress bars are basically a lie. There's no way you can predict in any way how accurate these are going to be. Okay. While that downloads, let me just see if there's anything else we can be doing in the meantime, because I've run out of things to show off on my website. The next thing we're going to install is something called Homebrew. Now, Homebrew is a macOS package manager. Linux has package manager built in. Windows, I think Chocolatey is a good option as well. But I'm on Mac, so I'm going to use Homebrew. So let's go to our good friend Google. We'll search for Homebrew. Homebrew equals coffee for Robbie's machine. I actually don't drink coffee. Tend to avoid caffeine, except in fizzy drinks. Tea and coffee, not really my thing. It's still going. This timer is just absolute rubbish. Now, Homebrew is the message packager. The missing package manager for macOS. To install it, we're going to paste this command, but of course I'm not going to do that until we've finished installing the command line developer tools. The nice thing about Homebrew is it's a dead easy way to install a bunch of software, like wget, right? Which doesn't come on Apple machines. It does some clever stuff behind the scenes, but if you want to download something, Homebrew is a great way to do it. Aaron quite rightly points out that you can install Homebrew on Linux too. This is also correct, but Linux comes with package managers. But of course, if you want to get in on that coffee branding, Homebrew is another option for you there. And like I said, on Windows, there is something called Chocolatey, and the command you run is literally Choco in the terminal to use it. Here we go. It's just a package manager for Windows. Generally, I try to avoid deving on Windows where I can, except at work where I'm forced to. Aaron has shared a link in the chat very kindly. I've literally never seen this website before, but it looks nice. I don't know where the installation is, but hey ho. This has been stuck on 1 minute and something for like 3 minutes now, at least. But that's life. Tell you something we can show you. GitHub Hollywood. Hollywood is, oh man, it's so good. When you watch a movie, right? And someone's a hacker, and the screen is covered in all these crazy animations and things and stuff that is totally unrealistic. Hollywood is a way of doing that. I haven't actually tried doing this on a Mac, and I think given the sluggishness of this virtual machine, we'll maybe save that to the end if we've got time. But if you do want to check out Hollywood and you've got a Linux machine, it's tons of fun. Just install it, run the word Hollywood in your terminal, and wow, your terminal will be absolutely wild, full of all this awesome hacker stuff. We're still on 1 minute and something. Adam recognizes Hollywood. Whenever I have a Linux machine, I install Hollywood. Is this, do you do this on enterprise servers and things as well? just install it. Aaron says Windows Terminal Preview plus PowerShell plus Oh My Posh, which must be some Windows version of Oh My ZSH, plus Chocolatey actually makes for a really nice time. Well, there you go. You learn something new every day. I've never really dev'd on Windows. I switched to Mac quite a few years ago now, 6 years ago, something like that. Aaron is a Windows user. Sometimes Mac as well, but he does a Windows for a desktop. Now, I appreciate it's not the most exciting thing watching me install software, but Zakoza, right on cue, has said, what made you choose Mac? That's actually a good question, All through my kind of school career, I was doing exams and GCSEs and all those qualifications you have to do. I had some little Windows machine. I had a netbook. I used netbooks for quite a while. These little 10-inch ones, 11-inch ones that are like this, really not very powerful. I had those for a while. And I always saw like the cool kids at school had the Macs, right? And there was like this amazing dream of the people with a bit more money than I had would have a MacBook. And so I already had an iPhone. I'd been in that ecosystem for a few years. And then I was coming around to my A-level exams. And Apple had just brought out the 12-inch MacBook, which has now been discontinued, right? But it was this really, really thin machine. It was the first one with the new design, the new controversial keyboard, only one port, a single USB-C port, and a headphone jack. And I actually loved that machine. I bought it for myself after I started working and saving a bit of pocket money. And that was my first Mac. And then after 2 or 3 years, it finally was no longer powerful enough for what I needed, particularly once I started university and I was doing more heavy work. I bought this 15-inch MacBook Pro once I got my job as a junior PHP developer and I was making a salary. I saved up and bought this machine. A few weeks later, Apple came out with a spec refresh. They bumped the processors quite a bit. And then 6 months after that, they brought out the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So the new one with the thinner bezel and the brand new keyboard and the better microphones and all this stuff. Yeah, so within like 6 or 7 months of buying my very expensive MacBook, it was 2 generations out of date. And I still got it to this day. Hey-ho. Now, the good news is our software has finally installed. And I need to go back to my notes to check what comes next. Homebrew, the missing package manager for Mac OS. I think it's also on the stream. These tabs are a bit messed up. It's probably just a virtual machine thing. If we scroll back to the top of this page, we will see the installation instruction. Let's go ahead and hit on copy. Go back to iTerm, which is our shiny new terminal replacement. We're going to paste this in, hit enter. I'm going to ask for my password. Now I'm on a virtual machine, so I have no qualms telling you that my password is password. Press return to continue. Let's do it. Let me zoom in a bit so you can see that better. And so that I can see it better as well. Because I'm using a virtual machine, it basically doesn't do high DPI. So it's certainly the text is not as sharp as I would like it to be. Let's say that. Lots of stuff going on here in the chat. Are we doing Python here? Yes, we will be getting onto Python. We're just sprucing up our terminal first of all with a bunch of cool stuff, and then we'll get on to installing Python. Aaron says, I want to use PHP for my hackathon project. Controversial decision, but okay. How do I set up my environment for PHP? You're a professional PHP developer, right? It's a long time since I wrote PHP professionally, and I'm going to leave it at that. If yes, can we use pip instead for Chocolatey? Oh yeah, install Chocolatey however you feel like. We're doing Homebrew, and then installing Python. I'm going to use pyenv actually to install Python a little down the line, because I'm a big fan of version managers. But just do whatever works best for you. PHP, why did you do that to yourself? You know what? I wasn't just full stack. I wasn't a full-time PHP dev. I was a lot more full stack. And it wasn't plain PHP. It was using a framework called Laravel. Laravel, if you're not familiar with it, is a fantastic framework for PHP, which makes life so much easier to work with. It is everything you could ever want. It's got like an MVC approach, so model view controller, and it's nice. Also, we use PHP 7 rather than PHP 5. PHP 7 is, there's something crazy. Like if you upgrade from PHP 5 to PHP 7, you get a 30% performance improvement just by upgrading like the version of PHP you're using. It's absolutely incredible how they do it. But yeah, I did that for a year. I wrote some React. I wrote a lot of front end, and it was a good time to learn some web dev. Cool. You'll see it's installing Homebrew here. Looks like it's taking a bit of a while with 300 odd megabytes in. It's a good thing my internet is reasonably fast. On a good day. My internet is 5G, so when it works, it's fantastic. When it drops down to 4G, it's really not so great. My building does not have fiber. Shame. Question here in the chat. I am very new to hackathons, and this is my first hackathon. Just going through the videos, any suggestions? That is a great question. I remember going to my first hackathon and was kind of completely overwhelmed by all this stuff going on. There's all these people who are like super pro coders, and there's these workshops and things, and I don't know what to attend. But already coming to a hackathon is a fantastic first step, so you should really be proud of that. I think if you want to make the most of it, come along to these sessions, the workshops, the live streams, chat to people in the Discord. And just don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're at a MLH hackathon, there's a ton of mentors around that you can ask for help. So please do ask them. And they're really good at providing some awesome technical support. Me too. Fantastic. We love to see some new folks, new fresh faces here in the chat. Very, very exciting. Hey, still installing. We are doing something. Homebrew, once it installs, it's going to be great. We use it at least once further on in our instructions. The next thing that we will install once Homebrew is finished is something called OhMyZSH. I'm a big fan of OhMyZSH because it just comes with a bunch of good stuff. Terminals on Mac now use ZSH rather than Bash by default. If you're running a particularly old version of macOS, you're probably still using Bash. But OhMyZSH is a bunch of extra, there you go, it comes bundled with thousands of helpful functions and just good stuff for your terminal. So let's go ahead. I'm going to skip the first one and go straight to GitHub. Now the README is a little bit of a weird one I've noticed with OhMyZSH. It's just hard to navigate, but that's okay. We will start installing this as soon as Homebrew finishes doing its thing. Prerequisites: a Unix-like operating system, Mac, Linux, BSD. On Windows, WSL2 is preferred. ZSH is what we're using. They're recommending version 5.0.8 and newer. We'll check our ZSH version in just a second. Curl we've got installed, and Git we've got installed as well, based on the developer tools, command line developer tools, the Apple ones that we installed earlier. This is taking its time, but, can't rush a genius, right? Is that the phrase? So if we look at how we install OhMyZSH, it's basically just another one of these ones that is a curl command. So we're doing a curl, which is like a web request. Basically, go and download the contents of this file. And you can actually inspect this in the browser, right? Just grab that URL, right-click, go to address a new tab. And it's just a bash script, with a bunch of mega impressive stuff in it. And all we do is we execute that script. So you should, in theory, be a bit cautious about this, finding random scripts on the internet and just downloading them and executing them without checking what they are. But it's how we do it here. This has taken a long time. It's making me slightly nervous. Do you think if I kill it with Control-C, it's gonna break it? We'll give it another minute. Aaron says yes. If I kill it with Control-C, is it going to break it? Probably. I presume that's what that's in reference to. Oh, look, we've got progress. Right. From Homebrew Core, there's a new branch. Downloading some more stuff. Aaron, you were correct. It's a good thing I did not kill it with Control-C. A small part of me feels like Aaron is actually following along. Aaron's a good friend of mine, fellow MLH coach, right? But I feel like he's here partly to keep an eye on me and a bit like an inspector, right? Aaron absolutely hates it when I do any kind of coding or technical stuff because I don't do it his way, which drives him up the wall. I'll press enter if it freezes sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I tried that earlier as well. Adam says I would follow along if my computer science coursework wasn't due in 5.5 hours. Been off the coursework. This is more important life skills. Great question. Should I download Windows Terminal or Windows Terminal Preview? I'm going to defer to my good friend Aaron, who knows how to use Windows. Aaron would love to answer this question, I'm sure. Alrighty, Homebrew has installed. Let's go and do, first you can just do like a brew, is it version? There we go. You can clearly see that Homebrew is installed and is in our path. Let's go back to the omyzsh GitHub page. We'll grab the curl command to install it. The wget, I believe, is not available by default on Mac OS. So we'll just go ahead, paste that command in, run it. It's going to clone. And this, I think, is a much quicker installation. Yeah. Now you can see that this is done, and we've already got this much cooler terminal. We've got some arrows and some colors rather than all the stuff we had before. Something that can happen when you install omyzsh is it will point out that some of your permissions are wrong in certain directories of ZSH. Easy solution is just to grab this command that it mentions here. I'm actually just going to copy it, paste it in, hit enter. Okay, and then let's just go ahead and open a new terminal just to make sure we're all up to date. I'm going to hit Command T to open a new tab and then close the old one. Nice. So we've got a fresh terminal. We're using omyzsh. We're well underway, but we're not quite ready to install Python yet. I'm actually going to go ahead and install an extension for omyzsh, which is already an extension on ZSH. This one is called Power Level 10K. Power Level 10K is based on the previous plugin, a previous theme called Power Level 9K. You know, remember that old meme, like it's over 9,000, right? Hence Power Level 9K. That was deprecated in favor of Power Level 10K, which is the next version. And look at all this cool stuff it gives you, right? I use this on every single terminal that I do development work on. We've got all this cool stuff about what Git branch I'm currently on, how long commands are taking to run. It's just a fantastic experience. Now, to install this, first step it says here is actually to install the recommended font. So if I click on that, it says here, if you're using iTerm2, which we are, it will install the recommended font for you. Simply answer yes. So in my case, I'm using iTerm, so I don't need to do it manually. But if you're on, say, a Linux machine or a Windows machine, just download these files, open them up. It will open in the appropriate font viewer application for your operating system. And then just go ahead and click on install. It's a really easy one. Make sure you do all four as well, because you need the bold and italic and stuff like that. Now, if we scroll back up, we go to the installation instructions when I find them. So we've installed the font. We're going to skip that, do that automatically. Rather than manual, we're going to go for the omyzsh installation, which is just a git command. And we'll copy that, paste it here into our iTerm. Again, it's going to clone that down. Nice. And then the next step, which I always forget to do, and I always wondered why it doesn't work, is you have to set this variable in your ZSH RC file. This can look a bit daunting, but it's not too bad. If you just follow the instructions, you'll be okay. So we'll head back to iTerm, and this squiggly tilde symbol means that I'm currently in my home directory. So if I do a pwd, print working directory, it says I'm in my user directory. If I do ls, you'll see here's the files. If I do ls-lah, it's going to give me everything, including my ZSH RC file. I'm going to use Nano, which is my favorite terminal text editor because I don't know how to use Vim. We're going to, when I figure out where my tilde key is, there we go, edit that file, ZSHRC, and it said here, right, set ZSH theme equals power level 10K / power level 10K. So we're in here, and it's actually just a few lines in this bit. It says set the name of the theme to load. Rather than Robbie Russell, which is the default theme, we will get rid of that. Type in power level 10K / power level 10K. Nice. So we've set the theme. We'll hit Control X, even on Mac, Control X, hit yes to save, hit enter to write to that file. Perfect. So we've set the theme. Now we're going to restart our terminal again. So I'll just open a new tab and click on close the old one. And you'll see as I've opened this new terminal, it's suddenly brought up the configuration wizard for the power level 10K theme. It's at this point that I'm going to fix the colors and things in my terminal because it's just too difficult to read, particularly this dark blue text. What I normally do in iTerm is I go to iTerm preferences, and then I go into profiles, I go to colors. And the first thing I do is I set the foreground text to white. I cannot stand this kind of gray text. That already looks better. I'm going to pump up this minimum contrast loads to somewhere around 70-ish%. So if you watch the blue text and the green text here in the background, and you see how they suddenly become way more readable. If you go all the way, you get a black and white terminal. I usually find that somewhere around here is good, right? I can still clearly see it's blue, but it's actually readable. So we set the color, and then the other one I like to set is the text font size. So if I head over to the text tab, rather than size 12, I'm going to bump this all the way up to 16, and it's just a bit more readable now for everybody. And then I learned this one the hard way. Make sure you actually click the close button to save those settings. So we just opened a new terminal, and it's brought up this power level 10K configuration wizard. It says you're seeing it because you haven't defined any power level 10K configuration options. It will ask you a few questions and configure your prompt. Now, remember what I said earlier about needing to install the font? Well, it's going to do that for you. So I'm going to click on yes. It's downloading those fonts for us, and it is installing those automatically. Nice. Font successfully installed. Please restart iTerm for the changes to take effect. You need to properly quit it, so you actually have to go ahead and click on iTerm 2 and then quit iTerm 2. Okay. And then we'll relaunch it. And as we relaunch it, it should bring up the wizard again. Yes, except my colors did not change, did not save. Why? Isn't this exactly what I said earlier about it not saving properly? Let's go and set those ones up again. So it's profiles, colors. So it saves the white. We'll put this back up to about there, and then increase the font size up to 16. Okay. Cool. Close. Hopefully that saves it this time. Right. So now it's installed the font. It's going to invite us to follow the rest of the wizard. It says, does this look like a diamond, a rotated square? I'm clearly seeing a diamond here, so I'm going to hit Y for yes. Does this look like a lock? I see a lock, so we'll hit Y for yes. And what it's doing here is it's checking that the fonts are correctly installed and that it's able to render like these icons and symbols as part of the font. If we were to answer no, then it will basically use a cut down version of the theme rather than the nice one with all the logos. Does this look like a Debian logo, a swirl/spiral? I don't know what the Debian logo looks like, but I presume it's like that. I can clearly see a swirl/spiral, so I'll hit yes. Do all these icons fit between the crosses? Well, this is a tricky one. If I'm looking up closely, my options are yes, icons are very close to the crosses, but there's no overlap, or some icons overlap neighboring crosses. I think we're okay. They're close, but there's no overlap. So we'll hit yes again. Prompt style. This is where you really get to get in with the personalization. You've got the options of lean, option number 1. Option number 2 is classic, which looks at black and white. Option 3 is rainbow, and then option 4 is pure. I love bright colors, so I'm going to go for rainbow. So let's hit 3. Character set. Immediately, I'm going to jump straight to Unicode there rather than ASCII. Show current time. Now, you might want to have your clock here, but the thing is, this doesn't live update. It only appears every time the prompt is displayed. So I'm just going to hit no because I find it a bit distracting to have the clock, which is option 1. Prompt separators. Right now, we're getting really granular here. The separator is this bit in between the blue and the green. I'm going to go ahead and stick with angled, which is 1. The prompt heads, I'm thinking sharp is the way to go, so we'll go for 1 again. Prompt tails, that's this ending right here. I mean, again, I'm just going to go for 1, and then prompt height, 1 line, 2 lines. I recommend you go for 2 lines here because this bit here can become quite long. If you've got a few directories deep and you've got a long branch name in Git, it's going to fill it up quickly. So just go for 2 lines. Prompt connection, I quite like the dotted line, so I'm going to stick with dotted. Prompt frame, this is a little hard to see. It's actually just here on the left, on the right, or both sides. Let's go ahead. I'm thinking I might actually go for no frame this time. Connection color. I mean, I'm really struggling to see the difference between these, so I'm just going to pick darkest. Prompt spacing, again, I recommend you go for sparse in this case rather than compact. So let's hit sparse. Icons, many icons. We all love these little graphics. That's what it was doing before. We can show an Apple logo or a directory and a little GitHub Octocat and a branch symbol. So we'll go for many icons. And rather than concise, I'm thinking fluent is the way to go here. Transient prompt is a little bit confusing at first. Essentially, these are all commands that you've run in the past, and it will only show the latest prompt. I'd rather have the prompt show like on every single command. So I'm going to hit no. Instant prompt mode. The recommendation is for verbose. I haven't read the documentation, so I'm just going to leave it on the default option there. Apply changes to the ZSHRC. We'll hit yes. That's the whole point of the wizard, is it does that for you. And boom, we are done. We got through the power level 10K wizard. We've installed Oh My ZSH. We're using the ZSH shell. We're using iTerm. We are making fantastic progress. Let's see what is going on here in the chat. A few questions about, I'm new to programming. Thank you, Adam and Aaron, for answering some questions there, and Kays as well. Can Java work here? I'm not fully sure what you mean by that question. If you mean can you run Java commands, then yes, this is just a terminal like anything else. I can do who am I can do ls, I can do all these crazy commands that you normally do in your terminal. Now you just get a bunch of extra things with it. Brilliant. What else do I like to do? Oh yeah, so here's something that really annoys me, right? And it's the only thing that I found that Windows does better by default than a Unix terminal. If you type in ls, it shows everything in the directory, right? It's listing out the directories. But I don't find this very readable. I've got to go across. I can't see the extra hidden files. All this stuff is just not a good experience. So I actually like to set up an alias for the ls command. And an alias means that I can type in something else, like a shortcut, and it will run basically the command that I'm asking for. Now, the way to do this is if you head to, let's go back to that ZSHRC file. And again, it looks very daunting, but it's fine. We'll just go down to the, well, that did not work as expected. We'll go down to the bottom. And it's actually suggesting here in the ZSHRC file that we do set up our personal aliases here. So I'm actually going to set up alias ls. Are you seeing that? This backup and sync thing just coming up and wrecking my screen share. Google, damn it. Alias ls equals, what's the command I like? ls-oah capital G. Wild one. We'll hit enter. We'll hit Control X and write that out. And now if I, let's just open the new terminal again. I do an ls. Now that is a proper directory list. It's showing me the hidden files. It's showing me the parent stuff. It's showing it as a list. It's showing me the colors. It's just, it's much better. Okay, so we set up our ls alias. Next here on my list is to set up Git. Now for Git, I'm going to go ahead and, when you make a commit with Git, right, you have your name and your email address is what defines the author of that commit. So we need to configure that because I'm on a new machine. So I'm going to type in git config -- global user.name. And that's going to show me that at the minute it's blank, right? There is no defined name. So if I just include here in quotes afterwards, my name will be Jakob Whitworth. I'll set it. So if I run the previous command to show it, now it's showing my name is Robbie Jakob Whitworth. The other one we want to do is for emails. So we'll go git config -- global user.email robbie@rjwhitworth.co.uk. Boom, if we do git config -- global user.email, we can now see that that is set as well. So we are making cracking progress here. We're flying through. Our terminal is all spruced up. We've set up our git config. Is there anything else we need to do for git? Ooh, SSH key. Now this is a good one. If you head over to GitHub, rather than using like HTTPS to clone repositories, do it with an SSH key. Now is when I need to grab my GitHub password. Let's not bother that for a minute. And I need the two-factor authentication code. I'm looking at 1Password just off my screen here. Okay, so log into GitHub. I'm going to go to my profile, to my settings. I'll go down to SSH keys. Okay, so you can see here the 4 SSH keys I've currently got on my account. The SSH key is a bit like a super long password, but it should be specific to a computer. You shouldn't reuse the same SSH key between machines. SSH keys are great because you have two parts to it. You have a public key and a private key. The private key is something that only you should know. You should keep that on your machine, never share it with anyone. And then I give the public key to GitHub. And because they're a pair, they're linked together, right? So I can use my private key to authenticate myself. Let's just scroll down a bit on this page. And it's going to say, check out our guide to generating SSH keys. This guide is so good that I use it for literally every single time I need to make an SSH key for anything. Okay, so on this guide, check for existing keys. I know for a fact I don't have any keys, but just to confirm, we will do ls.ssh. Doesn't exist, no keys there. Let's go and generate a new key and add it to the agent. Okay, if you don't already have an SSH key, you must generate a new key. But interestingly enough, it says here to open terminal, but we're too cool for that. We don't use terminal, we use iterm. Just to be clear, everything that runs in terminal will also run in iterm. Iterm is just a wrapper with some extra features on it. And let me do this side by side. Okay, paste the text below. Now, I don't like pasting commands because I find that I can't learn very well when I'm doing it that way. So instead, I'm actually going to type it out. SSH-keygen -t ed25519. That is the type of key. And then we'll go -c, and we're just going to put Robbie at rjwhitworth.co.uk. That's just a comment. Your email address is generally a good option. It's going to ask us where we want to save it. We're going to save it in this .ssh folder, so I'll just hit enter. I'm not going to bother with a passphrase. Okay, so it's made a key. And you see here it's telling us that your identification has been saved here. So that's our private key. The public key has been saved here in this .pub file. So the .pub file is the file we can share with people. The private key you should never share with anybody. Okay, so we've generated the key, which is exactly what it's telling us to do here. And then there's this stuff about the SSH agent. This is an important step because it means you don't have to manually refer to your key all the time. It's just like accepted as existing. Okay, step 1, start the SSH agent in the background. Eval $SSH agent -s. If you're using macOS Sierra 10.12.2 or later, you need to modify your config file. So we'll go for nano SSH config. Empty file, so we're just going to write in this. We'll go host star, add keys to agent, yes, use keychain, yes. Actually, what's it saying here? If you chose not to add a passphrase to your key, you should omit the keychain line. That's fine. We didn't use a passphrase, so we'll get rid of that. Identity file is ssh/id25519. What a whopper. Let's go and save. And then lastly, we just need to do SSH add. So we'll do SSH add. It says here again, if you didn't add a passphrase to your key, run it without the -k. So we'll just go SSH add ssh/id25519. And that, perfect. You can see how we're starting to see some of the cool things about OMI-ZSH and power level 10K. Like it shows here how long these commands taking to run. As if we ever get into a Git repository, it shows a bunch of extra cool stuff there as well. And now that we've generated our key, let's add it to GitHub. Let's Gonna move on to this guide here. Copy the SSH key to your clipboard was the first step there, right? Okay, so we're going to use our terminal. We'll go pb copy. Pb copy, I think, is only on Macs. I don't think it's on Linux. I'm not sure. But it's literally just a text file, so you just need to copy the contents from it. But if we do it like this, we don't even have to look at the contents, which is great, even though it's a public key. So we'll go .ssh/id, and make sure you put .pub on the end. You want to make sure you've copied your public key, not your private key. So your public key is the one that you need to put on GitHub. We'll go back to this page for SSH keys. I'm going to hit new SSH key. Just give it a title. I'm going to call this, actually going to call this virtual macOS SSH key because I'm in a virtual machine. We'll paste it in. This is my public key. We'll add the key. Nice. And that is attached to my account. The reason that's important is that I can now go and clone any repository from my account, and I can push to it without ever having to enter my GitHub username and password anywhere. This also works if you have two-factor authentication enabled. So SSH keys are really the way to go instead of a username and password for GitHub. Right, now we're moving on to the bit that you've all been waiting for. We're going to install Python. Now, if you're using a Mac and you just type in Python in your terminal with a version, it's going to say Python 2.7.16 is already installed. Now, this is great. Mac already comes with Python, but Python 2.7 is, a little bit outdated, and we try to avoid using it. However, you do not want to overwrite the existing installation of Python on your computer because it's going to cause problems. So instead, we're going to use a tool called pyenv. If I go ahead and Google pyenv, it's simple Python version management. Pyenv is a great tool that lets you install multiple versions of Python on a computer, easily switch between them. Now, to install pyenv, there are a couple of hoops we need to jump through. We'll skip past all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. Just care about the installation instructions. Still going, still going. Still going. Well, there's a lot here. Okay, installation instructions, prerequisites. For pyenv to install Python correctly, you should install the Python build dependencies. Let's go ahead and open that one in a new tab. We're on a Mac. We've installed the Xcode command line tools. That's what we did at the beginning. We've installed Homebrew. We've done that as well. And then it's going to recommend we install these ones. So let's just copy that, paste it in. And this one's probably going to take a few minutes. OpenSSL in particular always seems to take ages to install. But we will install that one. And this is just a bunch of the tools that we need in order to build Python. Because pyenv actually builds Python from source. How are we doing here in the chat? Some stuff here about Windows. Yeah, I'm aware I'm kind of hammering you all with content. I think what I might do is go ahead and publish this on GitHub later, because I think it's my personal setup. I'm pretty proud of it, but it is essentially installing. The key takeaway here is that if you want to install Python, use pyenv as the version manager. That's the most important part. Okay, so it's installing a bunch of stuff here. Readline is just installed. It's now onto SQLite. Then we've got X, Z, and zlib. These names, I've always found these names bizarre. The whole Unix world and open source world, naming packages is a weird one. Because I always grew up on Windows, right, where everything is all Microsoft style. Okay, so we've installed those dependencies. And then it says, consider installing with Homebrew. I can get on board with that. That's why we installed Homebrew earlier. That's why Homebrew is so great. Let's just run a brew update. Now, it should be up to date because we only installed it a few minutes ago. But brew update will update the repositories and things that it uses to install stuff. And again, right, that took 1 minute and 11 seconds to do the installation. Now we're going to install pyenv. So we'll go brew install pyenv. hit enter, and it's just going to install pyenv for us. You can also install Python with brew. There's a bunch of different ways to install Python. I like pyenv because if you ever need to switch between Python versions, it's an easy way to do that. And of course, it's best to just have like a single tool which coordinates all your different Python installations rather than a bunch of different ones. Okay, pyenv has installed. Step 2 says, follow the rest of the post-installation steps, starting with number 3. If you're on Windows, consider using this pyenv WinFork. Nice. So let's go to this, scroll down to number 3, which is what I told us to do. Okay, add pyenv init to your shell. Please make sure eval pyenv init is placed towards the end of the shell configuration file. So we are using ZSH. They've kindly provided us with a command to do it for us. So rather than us having to manually open our ZSHRC file and edit it, we can actually just copy and paste this command. What that will do is it will, if I can actually scroll, this double arrow means it's going to write and append to ZSHRC. So I'll just copy this command, go back to iTerm, paste it in here. It looks a bit freaky, but we'll hit enter. It's basically saying if pyenv doesn't exist, then pyenv init. That's done. Now we're going to just open up a new terminal again because we've edited our ZSHRC file. Close that, and if I go pyenv version, pyenv is installed. We're just like one step away now from actually getting Python installed. We're so close. So we've got pyenv. Pyenv is such a great tool. I can just run pyenv, list all the commands available to me. Let me just make this a little bit wider. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff here. You don't need to worry about it too much. Essentially, we can do install. So that will install a certain Python version. And then if we use global, that will set that to be the Python version on this computer. So the minute I can do Python install, is it -- list? Is that the one? Wow. Oh, what am I doing? It's not Python, it's pyenv. Pyenv install -- list. Okay, now this has given us a big long list of all the Python versions that are available. We've got all these weird ones like PyPy and Stackless and whatnot. If you scroll all the way back up to the top of this list, you just got the plain number versions. These are the ones we care about. We definitely don't want 2.7. I'm going to grab the latest stable version of version 3. So that's Python. It's going to be 3.9.2 by the looks of things, because 3.10 is still in alpha, and this is a developer version. So 3.9.2 is stable. So let's go pyenv install 3.9.2. Then if you ever need to have another version of Python installed, let's say you're working on a project that needs Python 3.4 for some reason, you can just install that in exactly the same way. And it will not interfere. And your modules and stuff are kind of, your dependencies all live specific to that Python version, that Python installation. Now, I think this command can take a few minutes. So let's just check in on the chat. How are we doing here? Adam there's some conversation about pizza. I'd like to say I am strongly in the camp of pineapple belongs on pizza. Pineapple on pizza is amazing. It just gives you that extra bit of sweetness, some extra flavor. But have you ever seen, like on Facebook and social media, that apparently banana on pizza is a thing in some places? I can't remember where exactly. I think it's like Sweden or something. But yeah, banana on pizza. I've not tried it, but I would like to at some point. There's another great question here I saw. How to digest this much learning? Yeah, like I said, we're hammering you with a lot of stuff. Pyenv to install Python is the most important part of this. And as Aaron said as well, you can rewatch it later. It'll be here on Twitch, and it's also on YouTube. So you can head to youtube.com/majorleaguehacking. If you're following along on Facebook, that's also awesome, but I don't think Facebook records it. Twitch and YouTube will hang on to these, so you can rewatch it whenever you like. Which of these do I need to get for Linux? Good question. So iTerm is not available on Linux, but your terminal on Linux is already pretty powerful, so I don't think you need to worry about that. If you're using Linux, I recommend you install pretty much everything else we talked about. So use ZSH as your shell and install omyzsh. As you install omizsh, it will prompt you to set ZSH to your default shell if it's not already. Then go ahead and install power level 10K, which is an extension for omizsh. Then what would we do? Oh yeah, I do my ls alias because I get annoyed by the default ls command. And then we did some git stuff. So setting your git author and doing an SSH key is really important as well. And then installing Python using pyenv. You can do all of that you can do on Linux. On Windows, it's similar. I'm not quite as sure because I don't use a Windows machine, but pretty much everything that I've described works on Windows, or there's an alternative for it. So for pyenv, for example, it said pyenv is not on Windows, but it has a link on the GitHub to an alternative called pyenv win, which will work instead. We're still waiting here for this to build Python. I've never understood why it actually builds it, but it does. And it's saying here, it's actually interesting that it's using readline from Homebrew. So you remember we installed that just before? Yeah, everything except iTerm for Linux is, I think that's right. While that works, should we start, I'm signed into GitHub, right? Why don't we make a list somewhere of all the stuff we want to install? GitHub.com/robswolf, my GitHub profile. Okay, what should we do? Should we do a gist? Should we do a repository? Let's go ahead and make a gist because it's essentially just a text document. Just have to work out how to do it on GitHub. Let me zoom out a bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on New Gist. We'll call it, the description, we'll call it set up your environment. File name. You know, I don't actually think I've ever set up a gist before. So this is first time for everything. readme.md. So we said, first of all, install, if on Mac OS, install iTerm2. Then we said install Homebrew. Then we said install omizsh. Wow, that kind of gave up on what I was typing halfway through. Install Homebrew. And then number 3 is install omizsh. Number 4 is install power level 10K. And then we got to set alias. Let's just put command. Alias ls equals, what do we call it? ls-l OAH capital G. A bunch of flags which configures it the way I like it. And then we did the git author and email. We did git author. I'm actually going to do that like this. And we'll go git config -- global user.email my email at example.com. And then the other one is git config -- global user.name Mr. Cool Person. Okay, wow. And then number 7, after the git author, install pyenv. Number 8 was install latest version of Python using pyenv. That's as far as we've got. That's where we're at. And it has installed Python 3.9.2, which is great. So if we just do pyenv global 3.9.2, what that will do is it will set the Python version across the system in your terminal to be Python version 3.9.2. Now, if I fire up a new terminal here, just to make sure that's all up to date, if I type in Python 3 -- version, give me Python 3.9.2. But even better than that, if I do Python -- version, I'm on Python 3.9.2. That, I think, deserves a little bit of a round of applause, because trying to get the default Python command to be Python 3 is a headache. And doing it this way does not break anything that uses Python 2.7 on your system. I strongly recommend you use pyenv to install Python 3. It's really simple to use. Just read the instructions. It's literally install pyenv install whatever version you want, and then you set it globally with pyenv global. You might put 2. Similarly, if I just run pyenv global, it tells me that's the version. I think I can also run pyenv versions, and that lists the 2 versions installed on my system. There's the system version of Python, and then 3.9.2. So that's what we're going to work with. That one took about 5 minutes to run, didn't it? I'm actually going to make a note of that. 5 minutes. Okay. So you've installed Python, you've got it set up the way you like, but you're not just a Python developer, you are also a JavaScript developer. Now, if you write JavaScript, there's a good, strong chance that you use Node.js at some point. Node.js, again, to be fair, Node.js is not quite as tricky to manage with the versions. You can just install that in any number of ways. But again, I quite like NVM. NVM stands for Node Version Manager. Let's Google NVM. Comes up with this one. NVM is actually a really solid tool. I'm a big fan of it. It's come up with it's nice because it's got the installation script at the top rather than pyenv, where we had to scroll past loads and loads of stuff. Let's just grab the install script. I'm going to use curl because wget is not installed on Mac. I'll paste that command in. And again, you're seeing a pattern here, right? We're using curl to download some kind of script. And in this case, we're just piping it into bash to run that script. So it's installed NVM into this directory. It's saying close and reopen your terminal to start using NVM or run this command. I'm just going to open a new terminal instead. And if I then do NVM -- version 0.37.2, I just run NVM. You'll see this is pretty similar to pyenv, right? Because it's the same idea. We're downloading different versions, and we're setting up the one that we want to use. Let me just make this a little bit wider still. Okay. Now, there are a lot of versions for NVM. We don't need to worry about all of them. Thankfully, we can just install the latest version of Node and use it. There's a few different ways to do this. I think if we do NVM install -- list, I think it's the same. Wow, NVM, I need to look at the command for it. I want to see all the remote versions available. ls remote, okay. ls remote lists out, here we go, every single version of Node.js which is available to install using this tool. We're currently at 0.8. I'm pretty certain the latest version of Node is 14 point something, maybe even 15 point something. I think this is going to take a bit of time. Oh, we're at version 4, version 5, 6, 7. We're making good progress here. Version 8, version 9, version 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There is version 15. Okay. And the latest LTS stands for long-term support, is version 14.16.0. You generally want to use the LTS version because it's the one that they're committing to supporting for the next, a number of years, right? So let's go ahead and install NVM install. Now, I think we can either do --LTS or we can do latest to grab the 15.12 one, but I don't want that. I'm just going to go for this one, v14.16.0. Wow, do I have to get 14.16.0, not 60. That's going to download and install in much the same way pyenv does. And I guess while that's running, we can actually head back to our gist and add the step here as well about NVM. So step 9 is install NVM. Step 10, install latest LTS version of NVM using, install latest LTS version of Node.js using NVM. Okay, so that's installed. And even better, it's saying we're now using node v16. So if I go node-v, got node v16 installed. We could also go and install version 12 or version 10 or any specific version of Node.js that we feel like. And again, just switch between them in the same way. So nvm global, I was going to say at the minute, not nvm global, sorry, nvm use 14. Yeah, so we're now using that version of 14 that we've got installed. Is it nvm current, I think? Shows me which version we're currently using. So when we say currently using, we mean the version that is available in our shell, in our terminal. So if I do node -- version, right, it's coming up with v14.16. If I go npm -- version, node package manager, it's this version 6, switching is included with this version of node. So this is really fantastic. We've got Python installed, we've got Node.js installed. The final one that we're going to get onto is RBenv. This is something for Ruby, which is probably less common amongst a lot of you, but you still see it sometimes. Things like Jekyll, which is a static web development tool, it uses Ruby. So let's go ahead and install RBenv as well. Google RBenv. Now with Ruby, you've kind of got two options for version manager. You've got RBenv, and there's one called RVM as well, which is Ruby Version Manager. And it actually tells you on the page for RBenv why choose RBenv over RVM. There's a number of reasons. You know, each is a perfectly good option. Personally, I like RBenv, so that's what I'm going to stick with. Let's go to installation. It says if you're on macOS, we recommend installing RBenv with our good friend Homebrew. So again, brew install RBenv. We'll install this, and this is our version manager for Ruby. Okay, so we're downloading that, installing the dependencies for Ruby build because it's deciding to build Ruby out of the box apparently. And then step 2 is set up RBenv in your shell. Okay. Well, what's this that's coming up with here? Ruby build installs a non-homebrew OpenSSL for each Ruby version installed, and these are never upgraded. To link Rubies to Homebrew's OpenSSL, add the following to a ZSHRC. Okay. This may interfere with building old versions of Ruby less than 2.4. We're not going to be using versions that are old. Let's follow the advice here. Grab this line, copy it, and we're supposed to put it at the end of ZSHRC. So if we just nano a file again, feel free to use Vim or Emacs or whatever your preferred text editor is. Actually, I'm going to put some comments in here as well. So while we're here, we'll say ls command alias. This one is our pyenv configuration. This one is our nvm configuration. This one is our use homebrew OpenSSL for Ruby. Okay. Save that file. And then where do we get to? Set up RBenv in your shell. Let's just do RBenv in it. Right, and it says load RBenv automatically by appending the following to ZSHRC. So let's copy that. Go back to our ZSHRC file, scroll down to the very bottom again. We've got another thing to add, which is RBenv. Put that in as well. Okay. Close your terminal window, open a new one so your changes take effect. We'll open a new tab, close the old one. Verify that RBenv is properly set up using this RBenv doctor script. All right, let's copy that script. And again, it's the same style. We're using curl to download some script, and then we're piping it into bash to execute it. Looks all good, apart from there's no version of Ruby installed. We can do that right now. We could say RBenv just to get it open. And again, you're seeing the same kind of thing here, right? You've got local and global. We can install certain versions. Let's do rbn install. I think this time it's -- list. Yeah, these are the versions of Ruby available. And if you're on a Mac, Ruby is actually already installed. There's version 2.6, which is a little bit out of date because we're now up to version 3. Let's fire this up and install version 3 in the background. So we can just go rbn install 3.0.0, hit enter, and this is going to download and run. Now, when I did this earlier, it took about 9 minutes. So in the meantime, let's jump back to some more Python stuff. Specifically, we've got a Python version manager installed called pyenv. We've installed a version of Python, the latest one, 3.9.2. But if you're in a particular project, it's hard to, you might want to be able to keep that environment for that project separated from other projects you're working on, particularly if you've got different versions of the same dependencies and things. So while that runs in the background, let me open a new tab. I'm in my home directory at the minute. Personally, I quite like to create a directory called dev. So we'll make the dev cd dev. I'm now in my dev directory. And then here, let's just make it, and we'll call it example Python, right? It's just some generic Python project. We go into it. Let's say we've got a, call it my script.py, right? All it does is it prints hello world. So if I do Python -- version just to check what I'm on, 3.9.2, nice. Python my script.py, hello world. This is my exciting Python application. But let's say I've got a bunch of extra dependencies. Maybe I'm using Flask or something like that, which can be a bit of a headache to install. I can go Python. Remember, Python in this case refers to Python 3. The Python space -m, and then venv. That stands for virtual environment. And the next argument, you can call whatever you like, but I like to call it env. So what this command is saying is we're going to run the Python application. We're going to use a module called venv, which stands for virtual environment. That's included with Python. And we're going to call that virtual environment env. So if I hit enter here, it's going to take just a minute, hopefully not as long as our Ruby installation takes, which is currently installing in the background. We'll just wait for this to catch up. Okay, 12 seconds. So if I do ls now, there's another directory in here called env. And if I do lsenv, there's a bunch of stuff in here. Now that I've created my virtual environment, this all lives within a folder called env. The correct thing to do is, if you're using Git, is to put that env file in your gitignore. So what I did there is I went nano.gitignore to open gitignore file. And I've just put env in here with a trailing slash. It just shows that it is a directory that we're ignoring. I can actually do a git init here now as well. And look at this exciting stuff that's starting to show up. Now you're starting to see why power level 10K is so good. It's showing on the master branch, and there's 2 untracked files. So if I do a git status, the untracked files are gitignore file and myscript.py. If I do a git add dot, it's now gone yellow, and it's the +2 is showing that there's 2 staged files, right? Exactly. Now let's do a git commit -m initial commit script and gitignore. Nice, and this is up to date. But I don't like using the name master these days, so we'll just go to git branch -m master main, and all that does is rename the branch. Still installing Ruby in the background, that's fine. Now, the reason we've got our virtual environment set up is we can actually run, it's a little bit of tricky at first to try and remember these commands, but remember you've got Python -m venv, right? Venv, and what this does is it makes a virtual environment called env. Specifically, it makes a directory called env within your project. Then we go source, and what source does is it's like reading and processing a certain file. So we go source env / our options are bin, and then within there we've got a bunch of stuff. We're going to go for activate. So if we go source env bin activate, now we're really starting to see this come together. We're seeing that we're in the example Python project using the env virtual environment. If I install something, pip install, this is when you forget every single pip module under the sun. Let's find some pip modules. Pip install. Okay, what have we got? AWS embedded metrics. Perfect. Let's install AWS embedded metrics. We'll run that. And also pip in this same case is short for pip3 because we're using pyenv to say that we're using Python 3 throughout. Just seeing, let's follow along here with the chat. What have we got? Can you suggest a good path to follow to be a good hackathon participant? The hackathons are what you make of them, right? You come to learn new things and maybe win a prize if you're lucky, but the prizes are really not the important bit, right? What's important is the taking part, the learning new things, potentially meeting new people. Every time I go to a hackathon as a hacker, I like to make sure I use a new programming language or a new framework, something I've not used before. So throw yourself into it and try and use something new. And coming to these workshops and sessions as well is, again, a really great way to do that. Second question, how to save my eyes due to working heavily on the computer? Yeah, again, we all spend hours and hours and hours a day staring at screens. If you've got a MacBook or an iPhone or something which has True Tone, it's worth enabling that, and that will adjust the white balance to match the white balance of the rest of the room and the environment. Also, night shift or night light or whatever you want to call it is a really, really useful feature as well. So I have night light set up or night shift set up to match sunset to sunrise. So when the sun sets, my screen will tint slightly yellow. Same for my phone, my iPad, all those kinds of ones. Flux is a great tool as well. There's now a built-in version on Windows called Night Light. But again, Flux is very powerful for that as well. So I used to use Flux back when I used Windows. So definitely make sure you take care of your eyes because, staring at a blue screen late at night is not good for you. The other thing I normally do on Mac and my phone as well, actually, is I have dark themes set to mirror sunset and sunrise as well. So during the day, I've got a light theme and I've got like a blue screen, like a normal screen. And then once the sun sets and the evening rolls around, it'll switch to a dark theme as much as it can. It'll tint the screen slightly yellow on both my phone and my iPad. My computer, sorry, just to protect your eyes a bit. It's because it is an important one. Okay, so what did we do here? We were installing some random package. We've installed AWS embedded metrics. So if I do an ls in here again, ls inside the env, and then basically it's installed that package within this virtual environment rather than somewhere on my computer. So nicely, we've got Python here is just sim linked to my actual Python installation within pyenv. If I do lsenv, is it includes? No, lsenv, let's see the other one, lib. No. Pip dash version, which pip? Yeah, so the pip is coming from this example Python installation. Pip install the AWS one, right? Where has it installed to? That is the question. I thought it would install into the env directory. Let's look again. lsn/bin. It's just got activate scripts, some easy install stuff, some pip stuff. And then if I do lsn/include, empty lsn/lib was the other one. I thought it would be in lib, but apparently not. Let's go to our good friend Google. Where does pip install to? I just want to see where it's installed. I thought it would install it into that directory, which is why I'm a little bit confused. How's our Ruby thing doing? Is that still installing? Still installing. Nice. In the virtual path. Oh, I'm getting so confused here. Python 3.9 in this, it's a directory, hence the D at the beginning and the fact that it's blue. So if I do lsn lib Python 3.9, it's a directory, right? And then packages. Okay, here we go. We've installed all the packages into this virtual environment. And this is nice because those packages are now specific to this project. So if I want to use a different version, for example, of this AWS embedded metrics package with a different Python project I've got, I can do that without having packages installed at kind of the system level or the user level. This is essentially the same approach as you have with Node.js. So when you've got a Node.js project, you have a folder called Node Modules, which is specific to that project rather than installing globally. This is how I think Python should be by default, but it's not. So just to recap what we did, we said Python-m venv-env, right? This creates a virtual environment called env. And you can call this anything, right? You can call this my environment. That will change the name of the directory that is produced. And then we did a source env/bin/activate. Now we can actually look inside that activate file. So let's do cat. Cat's going to print it out for us. We're going to env bin activate. Some wacky stuff here. Essentially, this is the script that gets run. This file must be used as source bin activate from bash. You cannot run it directly. Okay. So there's a deactivate function, which is going to reset some environment variables. And then we are exporting our virtual environment, exporting something to the path, updating the Python home, and doing some stuff. And if I can echo, what is it called? Virtual env. Right, that's showing the name of our environment, which is how power level 10K knows to display this here on the side. I think we could probably install another Python version, you know, or rather set the Python version in this folder. So if pyenv, remember how we did pyenv global to set the Python version globally? We can do pyenv local 3.9.2, I think it is. Right, and then that's, you see how it's updated here. It's saying $1. If I do a git status, it's going to show me that there's now a file here called .python version. If I cat that, it's literally just 3.9.2. Let's go and let's say globally use the system version of Python. And so this has updated our environment variables, and now it's showing 3.9.2. It's showing this particular directory uses Python 3.9.2 as specified by that file. So if I do a Python version, I'm still going to get 3.9.2. Similarly, if I do again a source env bin activate, we're in that virtual environment, which is how it knows to use this here. And look at that, Ruby has now installed 9 minutes and 59 seconds. I installed Ruby version 3 using rbenv. So if we just run rbenv again, well, let's do rbenv versions. It's going to list the installed Ruby versions. We've got 2, we've got system and 3.0.0. Now, if I do ruby --version, I'm going to use this system version installed by default. We want to use version 3, so we'll do global. We'll say ruby, rbenv global 3.0.0. Now, if I do a ruby --version, if I open a new tab and do a ruby --version, Ruby version 3. Perfect. That is how you can install everything you need for your environment without breaking it. So to recap, we installed iterm2, which is a terminal for macOS. If you're using Linux or Windows, there's good options as well, like Windows Terminal Preview is pretty good. Linux, the terminal is pretty good already, to be honest. And then we installed a bunch of extras. So if we go back to our gist, we installed Homebrew, which is a package manager. And then we installed OMyZSH, which is a plugin for your terminal. Then we installed Power Level 10K, which is a plugin for OMyZSH. We set up our alias so that when I do ls, it actually shows something more useful. We configured our Git author globally. So when I do commits, And we can actually see that here. If I do a git log, got the name and email address we set up earlier. Then we installed pyenv, so we can install any version of Python we want. We used pyenv to install the latest version of Python. And then we did the same with nvm, Node Version Manager, install the latest LTS version of Node.js. Then we installed rbenv, and we install latest version of Ruby using rbenv. That is how we set up our environment. Let's go ahead and publish this as a gist. Public gist. Go. Perfect. And what's the URL for this? Nice. I am going to tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to my normal desktop, not my virtual machine. I'm going to head to GitHub/RobsWolf. Wow, this looks so small. I have to find my gists. Gist.github.com. Here is my setup your environment gist. Let's grab the URL for it. And I'm going to go over to short.io, open dashboard, zoom in a bit here, paste this in. Actually, cancel that, get rid of that, don't need it. I'm going to use this old redirect I set up, which didn't use. So rather than linking to here, hackpack/setup your environment will now go to my gist, which has those instructions there. Let me put that on screen for you all. AC/setup your environment. Save, display. Look at that, 3 URLs. That's what you need. Now, this is one of MLH's March challenges, but we haven't actually got anything really here that we can show off and submit to DevPost. But you can leave this session proud of the fact that you have set up your environment in an appropriate way. You can use whatever version of Node.js you want. You can use whatever version of Ruby you want. You can use whatever version of Python you want. It's all good to go. You got this sick terminal with all these colors and things. It's a good time. If you want some extra stuff, I suggest you go and look up the Power Level 10K GitHub. And it will show you all the millions of configuration options you've got available to you. Configuration wizard, we'll skip that. I'm just scrolling down trying to find it. There's a massive reference, I think, in here. I mean, look at this here, right? This is all the stuff you can do. You can get like your battery percentage and your Wi-Fi strength stuff in here, right? It's really incredible. Worth tinkering with if you're that kind of person. Apart from that, please make sure you head to the URLs on the screen, hackpack/March challenges to check in, and then hackpack/hack with Robbie to check into this particular session. And then hackpack/setup your environment has got the instructions that I was just following. Looks like I have missed out a little closing quote there, so we can quickly fix that live on stream. No one will be any the wiser, apart from those of you who are watching me live right now. Let me jump back to the comments, see if there's any more questions. Thank you so much, Kays, for posting this link. Glad you found it useful. Is there a version manager for Java? That is a good question. Probably, but I've never tried one. Java is a whole separate kettle of fish. Google it and see what you can find, dude. Get a closing backtick in here. Update. Beautiful. We've got our alias, git author, all this good stuff for Python, Node, and Ruby. Now your environment is set up just the way you need it. Hope you found this session useful. Please head the URLs on the screen. Really important for teaching us, what's important to you. And we will see you next time. Thanks all. Bye-bye.